We're here today having a picnic at Laurel Springs Primitive Baptist Church, and we were a long time getting here. A little over a year ago, 2 years ago, we printed a journal article on Laurel Springs Primitive Baptist Church and the work that went on to make it a National Historic Site. So I think we're going to have now the folks that have done a lot of the work here come over and tell us a little more in detail about it.
Well, here you are, and you are two of the people instrumental in this building behind you becoming an historic site, a preserved historic site. So Shane, you were a mailman at one time, right, in this area?
Yes, I am, still am.
But not this particular, a different route.
Route 2, and this is Route 5, Cosby.
So how long ago was that when you were driving past and something occurred to you about this building?
Well, it was in the spring of 2017, I think about May or June. We had a really bad windstorm that hit in here in the mountains in this part of the Laurel Springs community. And I ran the mail that day, and I remember seeing all the trees being bowed. It was kind of spooky and scary, and I even come upon people making comments about the mail being out in that kind of weather. And I drove past, and I seen the two trees had fallen here, and one had clipped the corner of the building, another one had fallen here very close to it. It's remarkable. I think it was an act of the Lord that it didn't destroy the building.
Those trees were out front, right by the road, sort of?
Yes, kind of in the parking area on the,
okay.
Opposite side here. They hit the back corner there, and I got to notice that and kind of lamented and that happened, and noticed as I drove by here it was all grown up then really bad, and those trees just kept laying in here and no one's doing anything at all about it. So we took the initiative and decided to do something about it.
Now, we means who?
Well, me and my mother kind of helped spearhead the effort, as well as my father. Some other family members, other members of the community kind of got together, and people donated their time, volunteered to come together to help work on it, do certain things, and some people gave money. We took up a lot of donations from the community, people that wanted it saved as a piece of history.
So has Shane been interested in history before this time, or was this something brand new? Were you surprised to hear about it?
He was always interested in history from the time he was probably 8 years old up. He is a true history lover. He's like a book. He can tell you genealogy or local history off the top of his head. He's gifted.
All right. So he brought the idea to you, or did you both come up with the idea of let's do something about this?
We both came up with the idea.
Yeah.
I can remember as a child riding a school bus by here and seeing this church standing. But another fond memory that I have was of my grandmother. When she would come to visit my mother and stay with my mother, she always wanted me to drive her by this church and different spots here where they had lived in the park.
So she had gone to this church?
I think when she was very young, possibly. And she would always tell me, this is where I met your grandpa at and we started courting. I said, really? So that just kind of touched my heart. And I thought, well, that's just a love. You know, this has been a labor of love to restore this building.
Yeah.
But we wanted to do it for future generations, to be able to tell the history of this area and to share it with families in the area too.
So the people that you talked to who became interested, were they primarily people of your church, your community, friends, or?
It was friends and people here in the community.
Yeah.
Other members of the other Primitive Baptist churches have done a lot as well.
All right, now you mentioned Primitive Baptist Church. Let's find out what Laurel Springs Primitive Baptist Church means. What is that Primitive Baptist aspect?
Well, Primitive Baptist, they seek to go back to the original church and worship the way the original church did, and teach some of the same things, do the same things they did in the beginning to start with.
Now, in the beginning, in these mountains or across the sea,
Across the sea.
Okay.
Overseas there. Primitive Baptists do not worship with instrumental music. They exclusively use a cappella singing, and their reasoning behind that, the original church didn't use it, so they should not use it. And the scriptures do not teach to use instrumental music in worship, and so therefore they didn't. And they were like the original church in other ways as well. They didn't believe in Sunday school. They viewed that as an innovation or addition to worship, something man-made that's been added on over the years. And also they didn't believe in supporting missionary societies, and that's what's kind of set them, those things set them apart from the missionary Baptists that we have today.
Now, not supporting the missionaries, that's a part of something called the Calvinist aspect of this religion?
Well, there is a Calvinistic side to it. Most Baptists are Calvinistic, even the ones that are missionary Baptists kind of lean toward that way in their doctrine and their teaching. Calvinists follow the teachings of John Calvin. He was a French theologian that lived during the early part of the Protestant Reformation. And all those teachings were handed down through the years, and they believed in predestination, which means you're predestinated to be saved or lost, and if you're lost you can't be saved, and if you're saved you can't be lost. There's that. They believed in the TULIP. You know, you might be familiar with the acronym TULIP, total hereditary depravity, limited atonement, irresistible grace, perseverance of the saints. They were very strict, very stern kind of people. They lived very holy lives, very devout. If someone had done something, they kind of brought up charges. They kind of held court in church. And this one, you're reading those church minutes, so-and-so was accused of this or that, and they brought up, and the person was to make satisfaction, to kind of give the details of the thing, kind of like being in court. And if they didn't give satisfaction, they were disfellowshipped or excommunicated, or the proper discipline would be be executed on them. And they executed people for not coming to church for a variety of offenses. People picking banjos and playing fiddles, and I've seen them for just a lot of different things that a lot of people today would find interesting in those old church minutes.
Now, when you say executed, you don't mean actually killed. You mean excommunicated, sort of.
Yeah, excommunicated. They were
taken away from the fellowship of the church.
Yeah, they were cut off from the fellowship of the church, and they could be restored and come back. To many of them done that.
Well, you're talking about playing instruments and all, not being a part of the church. I assume dancing was another?
Yes, they frowned upon dancing very much. Playing cards, being member of a club, like say today's Kiwanis Club or Lions Club, things of that nature. They called them secret orders. And they thought those clubs shielded their members and protected them, so the other members of the church couldn't see them in their walk of life. Are they doing what they're supposed to do? So that's why they thought that was wrong to do that. Some of them did, some didn't. Some thought it was okay to join a club, but that was their reasoning for that.
Yeah. So this original church, what was its name?
The original church was Laurel Springs Primitive
Oh,
Baptist.
it was. Okay.
Yes. And they both retain the same name, Laurel Springs. But this church here sided with Elder Samuel McMillan in the split, and the church down the road that was later on taken into the park sided with Elder Isaac L. Ogle.
Because there was a theological or doctrine different.
Elder Isaac Ogle, Samuel McMillan accused him of having Sunday school, which they don't believe in that because the primitive church didn't practice that. We never found any evidence that he actually ever practiced Sunday school. Armenian doctrine, which is the doctrine of free will, that through the preaching of the gospel that you was able to reach the lost folks. And Isaac Ogle believed that. Samuel McMillan didn't. He didn't think preaching had anything to do with reaching the lost folks, that God had already determined that this person was going to be saved or lost, and they would have to have an experience of some sort to come to that realization.
So they had this big difference, so strongly believing one thing and the other, that they decided they could not coexist in the same building?
Unfortunately, it's very sad to see that happen. It's
Okay.
never really a good thing that churches split over things of that nature. But this church, I think, done very well through the years, had several members, and the church down the road, later, due to a clause in the deed, it was later, they quit moving the meeting in that building, and they made Ogle's Chapel, which was named after Elder Ogle later on.
So let's clarify. There was another building initially. And where was it in relation to this one?
In the park.
It was just inside
And
the
what
park.
it became the park?
Yeah,
Inside the park.
just barely inside the park boundary, about a half a mile down the road. And the first
Well, it
service-
wasn't in the park originally. It was just a church there. And then the park came along and wanted to buy the property. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So that's the church that split somewhere down the road. Down that way, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That one divided. And they originally met at Webb's Schoolhouse in Roostertown, for the best that we can figure, in 1889 when the church began.
Mm-hmm.
In that building.
That building or this building, 1899?
1889 at the Webb School,
At the
which
Webb
was
School,
on
okay.
Roostertown Road.
Okay, so then the faction that came here was under Elder
Samuel McMillan.
Samuel
But he,
McMillan.
declared it a church.
Yeah, she's talking about Elder Ogle. We might also add, helped organize the Laurel Springs Church when it first started in 1889.
He helped organize it. He came to Cosby in 1888. He brought his family, him, his wife, Nancy Jane Reagan. They had prayed about moving to Cosby because they were in need of churches in this area.
The Bethany Church was in need of a pastor, and
Yes.
he came here and assumed that role. He was very successful. He established about 4 other churches
Yes.
besides Bethany, and this being one of them.
So I think there's a good possibility in the very early days that he possibly could have preached here in this church too.
Mm-hmm.
Very possible.
And then what is the date on when a building was probably finished or about?
Well, Calvin Jenkins, he lived just right across the road here. His property and home place is now inside the park. He was a deacon here, and he sided with the McMillan faction. He also owned this property out here outside the park, and he donated a quarter of an acre of land here. And the deed was made in June 19th, 1914, for this little piece of property here. And originally the building it's been reversed, it's been turned around. You went in the other end, and the pulpit was up on this end because the road went down that way. And then about 1930, the road was changed, and they came through here about the same time they were buying the land for the park and built this new Laurel Springs Road, and kind of cut the whole property off, left it landlocked. And we found through the park maps that this property was considered to be being purchased, but it was left off due to the road situation, and we think it being a church, they didn't touch it.
Mm-hmm. So originally, did they move the entire building or just change the doorways?
Yeah, they just changed the doorways, the
Uh-huh.
inside, how it was set up. As you know, the chimney is on this side
Yes.
toward the front. The chimney was originally on the other side, back here toward the back. There's a little place in the ceiling where it was boarded up where
think
the
I saw
flue
that.
flew there
Yeah.
on the other side.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that this church did like or did take part in was something called foot washing, right?
Yes, they did. They call it feet
We
washing.
still do it.
Still do. Okay.
We have wine and we have unleavened bread.
Yeah, they normally take communion when they do foot washing as well. So, yeah, that was a very humbling experience, very spiritual experience. They took part of most mountain churches, especially the Primitive Baptists. They practice that, and they would do it several times a year, at least a couple times, 3 or 4 times a year. They would have to take their communion and they'd wash feet together. And a lot of churches around here still practice that. The Primitive Baptists do. Even some of the missionary Baptist churches still practice that.
Okay, what you holding there?
This is Elder Samuel McMillan. Now, he was in attendance here at the first time there were services held in this building, and September 25th, 26th, and 27th of 1914, there was a meeting of the Nolichucky Association here, and he was present, according to the minutes. He was from a community probably about 5 miles away from here, still in the Cosby area, that bore his family's name, was called McMillan. It's off of Trail Hollow Road. He had a very large family, had 15 children. He married Miss Sarah Caton in 1887. He joined the church the same year in 1887. He served as a deacon, assistant clerk, and he was ordained an elder in 1899. And he later had a disagreement with Elder Isaac Ogle. That's the picture my mother's holding.
Okay.
In 1910, there was a question posed to the Nolichucky Association that whether the preaching of the gospel converted the alien sinner, and their answer was, they said no, that we are to pray for the alien sinners, that they would repent and come to knowledge of the truth. Well, the next year, 1911, so you see that had been brewing for quite some time between those two. In 1911, they split at the association meeting that year over those different things, some of those we've already mentioned. And Elder Isaac Ogle went and started a rival association also called the Nolichucky Primitive Baptist Association, and then Elder McMillan, and both claimed to be part of the original one. Both sides did. Elder McMillan's association retained the same name, and it was later combined with the Tennessee Primitive Baptist Association in 1922.
He is an encyclopedia.
He's like a book. He is a book of history.
He is.
And those churches that belonged to those associations, churches in Cocke County, Sevier County, Blount County, they were all a part of McMillan's, and the ones mainly, there was some around here that belonged to Elder Isaac Ogle, as well as some in Greene County, some in Madison County, North Carolina. They were spread all around this
That was a
area.
prominent religion or churches here. Denominations here in this area was Primitive Baptist.
You had Primitive Baptist, you had Methodist, and you had Church of Christ, and that was about it for this part of Cosby.
In the very early days, but I think Primitive Baptist outnumbered
Yep,
all of them.
they dominated during that time.
They dominated this area pretty much.
When you wrote your piece for the Smoky Mountain Historical Society Journal, you talked about the way that one church group talked about the other church group after they had split. And I thought it was a nice, colorful expression. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think the name, we've heard the name Scratch Ankle being applied to both of the churches. I think Scratch Ankle was originally referred to the group that met down the road inside the park. And
they were kind of feuding.
They were kind of feuding over that. We think it was tied to that, and I think as well as, I think it was maybe as a term to ridicule, kind of had to do maybe with the building or structure. One of them's building was being bad.
Ran each other down.
Kind of. And
plus having a different doctrine preached inside, a different way of looking at their religion. So they were infected by the devil, is sort of the sense I'm getting of it too. Is that right or wrong?
Yes, so well, the mountain people referred to the devil as Old Scratch.
Right.
That was also a nickname for the devil. So
They were giving each other the devil.
I got you.
That's what it was.
this is a copy of some church minutes. It's from the Bethany Primitive Baptist Church of Christ, which was the first church in the Cosby area. It was established in 1826. And it was mainly up here. It's situated at Caton's Grove on the upper part of Cosby. And I.L. Ogle was the pastor of Bethany during the time. And here's a list of the charter members of the Laurel Springs Primitive Baptist Church and its organization in Bethany's minutes.
Okay. And then there's another very important piece of documentation. And Judy's holding that. What is that piece of paper?
This is our certificate for the National Register of Historic Places, and Laurel Springs Primitive Baptist Church made this list April the 12th, 2021, and we were very happy to have it on the National Register.
Well, that didn't just happen at a snap of a finger. What was that process of enabling this to happen? What happened? What did y'all have to do to make it come to be?
It was a process of trying to get the building shaped up and interviews with different,
Gathering as much information as possible.
and this took probably about 2 years in researching information about this area, the church, and the people. But it all worked out in the end, and we were just ecstatic.
So that information was then fed, I assume, into some official documents.
Well, it took many trips to the courthouse too, also to the library.
Mm-hmm.
And
Also, we had a lot of good assistance from the East Tennessee Development Group. They come out and helped us.
Yes.
That's who we contacted to get it on the list. They come out and analyzed everything, examined the building, examined everything, and they told us we had the excellent chance of getting on the list. The building doesn't have electricity. It's in very good shape, and everything's mostly original. It's still there on it. So,
What were the steps in the official process?
well, we go online and done some research about how to go about all of that, and we contacted the East Tennessee Development Group there, and they come out and looked at it, and then they helped us fill out the paperwork, assisted with that, because it's a very long, drawn-out, laborious process. And they helped us do that, and we contacted the state, Tennessee Historical Commission, and they had to approve it getting on the list for the National Register, and we attended a meeting. Of course, we got to do it online. That was back during the COVID and all that, and luckily we didn't have to drive all the way.
Really? That was good. One good thing about it.
So we sat in on that, and their response was very positive, and they were very encouraging about this building, and whenever we told them our story and everything that we had done and come together, and all the folks that had helped us, and they were very supportive, and it was a unanimous vote to make the list. And we're on the state register of historical places as well, on the National Register.
So by being approved on the Tennessee state level and recommended to the national level, was it automatic on the national level, or did you have to go through more process with them?
It was mainly automatic. I think the Department of Interior, they come out here and looked at it as well.
there were several people that had to come out and look at the building and the,
Check everything out and make sure everything was what we said it was. We had our T's crossed and I's dotted and everything else.
it was a long, drawn-out process.
I hear
really
you.
was, but we were just thrilled.
I'll bet you.
We were thrilled.
So how did you get the news? Who called you? How did you find out? And how did you react?
I was there online at the meeting, and I muted. I pressed the mute button real good, and I just right back and hollered. I was enjoying. I was jumping up and down, dancing around, and my wife thought there was something wrong with me.
Thought you got religion. So the process itself took how many years to go from seeing that tree on the building?
Probably about 3
years.
About 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
And so you have something to be proud of, that you
certainly
accomplished this, and the neighborhood, the neighbors who helped, the community who pitched in and all. Very good. Well,
We're very happy. I'd like to make another comment too. Another reason for this is the only building in our community here that is on the National Register. And we thought it would be a great community thing, just to preserve it. It has a story to tell.
Yeah, it does.
To be handed down. And that's what we want to do, is preserve and be able to keep that story going.
Yeah.
We just feel very blessed and fortunate enough to be able to do this and to share it, because a lot of our community's history has been lost over the years, and we're just thankful we're able to save and salvage what's left, what we can of it, and share it with others and future generations.
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly how it worked out that the Smoky Mountain Historical Society was able to gain access or to be able to do this today, but I really appreciate it. I assume there were people from your community who had been involved in this process here today.
Yes.
Good.
Absolutely.
So it was a good community event.
We
Good
were
people
asked
and
to
a
do
lot.
spring picnic for Smoky Mountain Historical Society. So I kind of had a brainstorm. I said, let's do a dinner on the ground. So we've had great weather, we had good
Yes.
singers, and
Yes.
I think everybody enjoyed the day.
I'm sure
thankful.
they did.
We thank the good Lord.
Absolutely.
The Mount Cameron Fire Tower, it's also listed. That's the only two in Cosby.
Mhm.
I think
Yes,
there's
sir.
only maybe 16 or 17 buildings in Cocke County that's on the list.
Oh, there are some others in other
There's-
parts
In
of
other parts of the
Different
county, but there's
areas.
only two here in
in
Cosby.
Cosby area. I got you.
Yep.
Well, proud day for Cosby.
Sure is.
Well, thank you two so much for providing this information and writing it down and helping to tell this story. Thanks for letting us be here and a part of it today.
Well, great.
Thank you.
You're
We're glad
welcome.
to share the history.
Wonderful. Good day to you. Plenty to eat left.